So Donald Trump hardly goes anywhere these days without Elon Musk. And he sits down for interviews. Elon's right there beside him, taking most of the questions, and the interviewer will shift the questions toward Elon, or Trump will just look confused and look at Elon for the answer. And this is just weird. I'm not going to apologize for saying this is just really weird. I don't ever recall a time in American history where a campaign donor bought their way into the presidency, was given a department that was created solely for them to then do whatever they wanted to do with our institutions and with all the safety nets and all the programs that were out there. And then that person sat alongside the president during interviews and took the questions. I don't ever recall that happening, but it's happening now. And the way they're spinning this is the will of the people. This guy that no one voted for is doing this for the president because that's the will of the people. Elon tries really hard to make it make sense in this next clip and fails miserably. Take a look.
What all we're really trying to do here is restore the will of the people through the president. And what we're finding is that there's an unelected bureaucracy. Speaking of unelected, there's a vast federal bureaucracy that is implacably opposed to the president and the cabinet. And you look at, say, DC voting, it's 92% Kamala. Okay, so we're 92% Kamala. That's a lot.
They don't like me here either.
I think about that number a lot. I'm
Yeah.
like 92%. That's basically almost everyone.
Yeah.
And so, how can you, if the will of the president is not implemented, and the president is representative of the people, that means the will of the people is not being implemented. And that means we don't live in a democracy, we live in a bureaucracy. And so I think what we're seeing here is the thrashing of the bureaucracy as we try to restore democracy and the will of the people. Is this making sense? I mean,
No, not a lick of that made sense. All that was someone using a bunch of big words and trying to sound smart. And there will be people out there that'll go, yeah, man, Elon's smart. Good thing Trump got him in there. And they don't even realize just how weak this makes Donald Trump look and just how weak this makes our country look like on the world stage. Well, let's talk about what Elon is saying here. Okay, we're gonna put the will of the people through the president. It's the will of the people. Well, if it's the will of the people, then why are you even here? You weren't elected. Why are you even in this position? Why are you sitting by the president? Why are you doing all of the president's work if it's supposed to be the will of the people through the president? Why are you even here doing the job to start with? You see, they go in there and they completely dismantle the system and completely do away with all the checks and balances, and that is not democracy. He's sitting here trying to use a bunch of big words to sound smart, and people will automatically think that he is. But folks, there's nothing democratic about the way they're going about things. Anyone that disagrees with them is put out. Anyone that speaks out against them is fired. Anyone that rocks the boat in any way is now somehow trying to get in the way of the will of the people. This clearly isn't the will of the people. This is not how our system was ever supposed to work. This isn't it. And in no other place and time have we ever seen a president just hand the reins over to someone like this and say, here, just go in there and cut everything out. Cut out all the wasteful spending is the way they're framing it. And people are buying into this. And at the end of the day, we're going to completely lose American democracy altogether because people weren't smart enough to see through it. But when I go back and think about these things, I think back on the fact that the first go around during Trump's first presidency, the people that he surrounded himself, a lot of those people were people who had experience in government and had been there before. And so he surrounded himself by those people, and those people said that it was complete and utter chaos when Trump was in office because he did not know what he was doing. They said he was completely clueless and didn't realize what he was doing, and they had to keep pumping the brakes and pulling the reins and said, no, wait a minute, that's not how the system works. So this go around, when he comes back in, he surrounds himself with loyalists, people who will just say yes to him. He doesn't care if any of them's qualified, none of them were. He just cares if you will say yes to me. Okay, so now he's got that covered. He's got everything covered. He's got all these people around him who will say yes to him. The only problem is he don't know how to do anything himself. And so he goes over and gets Elon, who he says is the smartest guy in the world. He thought he was the smartest guy, but Elon's the smartest. I found the smartest person to do my job for me. That's the way that I hear that when I hear it said to me. That's the way it looks to me. It looks as though this guy who was clueless the first go around came back in for round two, and this go around said, "Hey, I'll just surround myself with yes men, and then I'll get someone else to do my job for me, and then I'll go off and play golf, and everybody will just forget about the fact that I said I was going to solve their problems on day one. I'll just turn it all over to this guy." But I want to show you one more clip of Elon. I'm sorry, this one is just funny, and you got to see this because he uses the words competence and caring and Donald Trump in the same sentence, and it's bad. But take a look.
I guess at a high level, I think it's what the president mentioned earlier, which is that in order to save taxpayer money, it comes down to two things: competence and caring. Sure. And when the president was shown the outrageous bill for the new Air Force One, and then negotiated it down, if the president had not applied competence and caring, the price would have been 50% higher. Literally 50% higher. The president cared, the president was competent, the price was not 50% higher as a result. And so when you add more competence and caring, you get a better deal for the American people.
That has got to be one of the most harebrained things I have ever seen. I didn't know that competence, caring, and Donald Trump could ever be put in the same sentence, but he managed to pull it off. Donald Trump doesn't care about anything but himself and staying out of jail, and he's not competent because if he was competent, he wouldn't need Elon sitting there beside him holding his hand this go around. It is so plain and obvious what happened here. Here was a guy trying to stay out of jail. Here was a guy who, for the first time in his life, was this close to facing accountability, was this close to paying for the things that he did, and then found the richest dude in the world that would come along and buy him and his followers all up. And I will admit to getting one thing wrong about all this. I did, and I'm going to go ahead and say it. The one thing that I really got wrong about this whole thing is I used to say that, cults usually don't allow a new cult leader to come in. I mean, Jim Jones was it for the people of Jonestown. David Koresh was it for the people of Waco. They didn't want anyone else. And I would say many times in my videos, the one thing about it is they'll never let someone else be in that lead role. But I guess MAGA is okay with handing over their cult to the richest dude in the room and then let the guy sit back and play second fiddle. So this is the first time that a cult ever turned the reins over to somebody else. But then again, I guess this is the first time that someone looked over and saw a cult and said, you know what? I'm going to buy that and use that to my benefit. And there will be no way that anyone could convince me otherwise that that's not what Elon Musk did. I really don't think, I will say this. I think Elon does and says a lot of stupid shit. He does. But he's way smarter than Donald Trump. He just doesn't have the personality for whatever reason. He doesn't have the cult of personality to really get over the way Donald Trump did with his crowd. I will never understand how Donald Trump got over with his crowd. It will never make sense to me how anyone could look at someone that weak and fragile and think that they've got the answer to their problems. But he did. He got over with his audience. Elon would have never got over with that same crowd because he just doesn't have the ability to spin bullshit like Trump does. But he looked over and he saw how weak and gullible they were, and that's why he gave them the microphone. Because they're the easiest people to control. All my life people would say to me, the left is going to lead us into a dictatorship. Obama will get in there and he'll do away with all the checks and balances. And pretty soon he'll just be the dictator. He'll come in there and he'll give you all free health care and you all will feel warm and fuzzy inside and that'll lead him into being a dictator. And I always said, no, it won't, because people on our side think for themselves. And people on our side are smarter people that knows how the system works. And we would never go for stuff like that. We would sit back and go, wait a minute, that's not how our system works. Meanwhile, if you empower the stupidest of people that doesn't know how the system works at all, then you can turn the reins of government right over to some outsider and say, here, have fun with it. And they'll roll with it because they don't know any better. So to all the people that used to argue with me and say the left would be the ones that would come out with a dictator, I mean, clearly, in order to have a dictator, you have to have a bunch of stupid people buy into it. And that's exactly what Elon Musk looked over and seen. He saw a way to capitalize on all of it. And now he's getting to sit there and take the questions for the president. And all the people that voted for Trump thinking he was a strong man, you voted for a man who had to hand it over to somebody else because he didn't know what he was doing the first time, didn't know what he was doing the second go around. And so here, just hand it off to this guy and try to ride it out to a dodge accountability. That's the way I see it. And, we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see how long this love affair lasts. I have some people saying, oh, this can't last forever. But then again, when you owe someone as much as Trump owes Elon, I think he will sit there and eat shit off of him from now on, personally. I don't think this will stop. I think as long as Elon's in the picture, Trump will be taking orders from him. But I truly do appreciate all your support here on the channel. We're continuing to grow, and I appreciate you for hitting that subscribe button. So if you like the kind of content that I do, be sure and hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything to do so. Get in on these crazy conversations if you want to. I totally understand if you want to avoid comment sections. Sometimes they can be toxic. So if nothing else, leave a blue heart. That'll help boost the videos in the algorithm and get them out there to more people. But I truly do appreciate your support. And I promise you, I will never have someone sitting in this chair, just sitting here beside me, just taking questions. You subscribe to Tennessee Brando, okay? And I'll make sure that I'm always the one sitting in this seat. I may have a guest. I may bring someone on and give them an interview and talk to them and talk things out. But you will never see me just sitting over here while someone else talks, because that's not how it's supposed to be.